What is up? What is up? What is up? It is another episode of Esports with Emrick. Running solo tonight. Might have a guest drop in, but we've got a 4-game slate to talk about. Yesterday, I think we danced around what needed to be done, just like some of the players danced around the objectives that needed to be captured. Some of us did better than others, but I thought it was a good stream. I thought we were into the right places, and some of us pulled the right triggers. But look, that wasn't for me. I would have been if FBX could have, completed the reverse sweep, or possibly if V5 had just, won the second game or the third game, or maybe if possibly Weibo just won the first game. Who knows? A lot of what ifs. But, that's in the past. Let's go ahead and look into the future here. I do apologize. I am watching Evil Genius Academy just completely throw away this game. I just need one of the two. This would be fantastic if we could just secure it right here. But I think they're about to lose another Baron. Kind of frustrating. But nevertheless, so we've got a 4-game slate. This is the last slate before we have the wonderful Chinese New Year. Look, so that's, again, as I said yesterday, we're going to go ahead and still have some type of content out, regular days and times. There might be a little bit more sporadic, but I am going to try and cover some of the ERLs, going to definitely cover the LEC, any LCS, lock-in, and regular split previews. We can go into that as well. So, looking forward to it. It's still going to be a good time. We're still going to be here, same place, same time. I want to thank you guys. I have 69 subscribers right now. Super cool number. Super glad to be there. But if any of you are watching and you're not subscribed, go ahead, just go ahead and do that. Like the video. That's all good. So let's hop right into this and let's take a look at what we've got for tomorrow. We do have first over in the, let's see, I think it's here. All right, fantastic. First and foremost, we've got KT Rolster, pretty big favorite, minus 400, going against Sandbox. Now, Sandbox was a team that I myself, backed very early in the season. That worked out really well on that slate. And if you've been bullish, sharkish, whatever you want to say about Sandbox since that time frame, it's not really worked out very well for you. So they're coming in as a massive underdog here against KT. I think that's justified when you look at these two rosters. There's a lot on Sandbox that you kind of in theory do like, but in this matchup, I do think they should be a dog. I don't necessarily know if I want to touch them at plus 275. I don't know if I want to touch them at minus 115. Even getting just to win one game. This is just a series where I don't know. I kind of want to play it in DFS, but KT is pretty expensive. When we look at what their kill totals are, we have it as a 23.5. I think that's pretty similar to what I have. EG just won the game. Fantastic. Good for them. Good for me. Good for everybody. Yo, what's up, Iron Berserker? How are you, man? So, I think I'm going to steer clear of this one overall. I don't know what I necessarily had on the projections for that. Let me just take a look real quick here. So that game, I have it like a 21. So it's pretty close to being a spot where I like to bet that. 2 games off is typically, or 2 kills off is typically a spot. But as I discussed yesterday, unless you're going to bet both of the games, and right now the under is at minus 120. I don't know if that's a kind of a winning betting strategy for this. So probably going to steer clear of that. When we take a look at LCK, like First Blood, First Turret, T1 and Nongshin, which play later, are both really good First Bloods. KT is looking at a 55 and a 55% First Turret. And when we look at Sandbox, they're pretty similar. So look, the one bet, maybe First Turret percentage, 0% for Sandbox, 50 for KT. What are they giving us in terms of odds for that turret? Sick. They're not even giving it to us. All right. Well, look, I guess you can check this later if you want. And if something like that pops up, I think that is the the first and foremost, and maybe the only thing that I'm looking at least in this game. So we can pop on over to the other game from the LCK. We've got kind of a banger here. Not going to lie. We've got T1 and we've got Nongshim. T1, the deserved favorite at minus 225. This is a team that coming into the season, a lot of people were super bullish on, and rightfully so. I mean, in terms of what they've produced, we finally got some consistency from them last summer in terms of their roster. None of the shenanigans that we saw last spring where they were running the 10-man roster. We know who's starting. I mean, this was a game that, if you remember, even into summer, but certainly in spring of last year, there was no way that you could touch this game, being the late game on the LCK4 slate. You had no idea who T1 was going to play. Was it Gumiyasi? Was it Teddy? Was it Closer? Was it Faker? And now we have, just another slate where both Faker and Closer are playing, but we don't have to worry about any type of substitutions here, aside from something absolutely crazy. Never say never, especially when it comes to the LCK late game, but feel pretty good about that. In terms of Nongshim, I guess there is some level of sub risk for Peter and effort, but I think we've kind of seen that Peter has been established as the support that they're going to run with. They've been successful with him. I would be absolutely floored if effort made his way back onto the stage. So I don't think I would have to have any worries there. In terms of this game, we're looking at a 23.5, minus 120 for the over, 23.5, minus 110. So that's kind of interesting, and so is this spread. And we're going to kind of break down some numbers because I think that this might be a spot that I do want to attack. Even Nongshim, I don't think that at plus 172 is a crazy number. It just depends on which one of these teams that you feel a little bit more safe with. And I like T1. I think T1 wins this series. So I'm probably not going to take the minus 225 because they have shown some cracks in the armor, playing teams like Bro really closely, dropping a game earlier. And look, I don't want to back Nongshim at like a plus 172 because they also have, while they've inspired some level of confidence, they haven't necessarily inspired enough for me to bet them at plus 172. That number was maybe like a plus 200. Probably would be considering that. But let's take a look at some numbers here. Yeah, and we are going to get a guest today. Let me throw this invite over to him. All right, so going into this at 23.5, I mean, that's a total that is interesting to me. Let me see what I have this kind of projected at. When I'm looking at this game, I have it probably like a 17-8. So a 17-8 kind of game. 17 plus 8. Yeah, I'm just doing that math real quick. I knew it was 25, guys. Okay, chill out. Just relax. Like, I know how to do 17 plus 8. I just like to be sure. Okay, chill out. But so that's interesting. But it's only 1.5, and you're getting the minus 120. So I don't know if that's a spot that I want to attack. Maybe we can ask our guest what he thinks, as we've got joining us again, same as last week. I think it was around this day. It's not Moose. No, of course. It's the legendary Gelati. Welcome.
What's going on, everybody?
Welcome. Well, hey, so where we're at right here is I briefly went over the KT sandbox. Don't really like the total. Don't necessarily really want to bet anything there. I don't know if you have any input. I think KT is the deserved favorite, but I don't like that betting line. I think that the over under, at least on Bovada, I would want to take the under. It's minus 120. I don't think it's enough of an under at minus 120 to take both of the games.
Yeah, let me take a look. Just getting situated here, folks.
Sure.
We're talking KT or T1 and what is it? T1 Nongshim?
I was talking. I already went over KT and Sandbox, so
okay.
I just don't know if you had any input on that. The one thing that I did like was first turret for KT is not offered on Bovada.
Yeah, I played the unders in this contest. The under 22.5 kills.
But did you get it at like an even money, or what kind of odds
Minus
did you
one.
get?
I paid 112 for it. I pretty heavily weight frequency. That might not be right, but that's what's worked for me over time. And there was a big difference. It was like a key number, if that makes sense. Like
Sure.
when I put these two, and really in the LCK too, it ended up being a key number, or just it flags it as that. Like there was a big difference in the frequency between 22.5 and 21. So I was like, whatever. 112 is not bad. If it gets up to like minus 120, 125, then it's just like whatever, I'll pass on it. But
yeah, I mean, it's for, I don't know. I guess for me, it's just I can totally see both of these games going over. I can see both of them going under. I can see one doing it and one not. And I guess I kind of feel like this series doesn't go 3 games. This goes 2-0. I think either way that it goes, whether it's KT or Sandbox just comes out and actually plays really well, and KT's off, and it's just a bad day for aiming. I feel like he has those. Like he's like world class some days, and he's like Sam D class other days.
Yeah, 100%.
And like if you look back at the game totals, at least this year, I mean, Sandbox has given up 12, 13, 13, 12, and if it's one of those games, then we're not going to hit. If it's one of these like 19s, and the same can be said on KT's kill totals, 12, 13. So it was just it's a high risk, because I just do feel like KT's a little bit more of a, I don't know. I guess maybe I might take it actually.
What I actually do, I'll just like give you guys an idea of how I come up with this stuff. I take combined average kills per game. I do a multi-layered projection on kill totals, right? I'm not approaching this as much from a DFS angle. So the way I do it is I take combined average kills per game. That gets a weighting. The time implied total, as in my projected time total, not the book price. As in like what I set what I think the number is going to be at through my projections. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to play an over or under on it. And then I wait for book odds. And then I wait for my own rating odds. And then I have a small percentage for an underdog win projection as like a separate thing. Because a lot of times, like when underdogs win, that's when overs happen a lot of the time.
Sure.
At least in certain leagues. It's not like that for every league. So I came up with a 21.3 for this one, all told. But it was on the higher end. So it's Sandbox are a high volatility team for kill totals. Like there's a big variance between their kill totals game to game. And KT are actually on the low end of things. Like they're way, way below league average. So that's kind of how I came to the conclusion of it. That's why the 20, I played 22.5 under, but that was my only play in this one.
Yeah. And I one of the things that I look at, especially when when we have these type of samples with like KT, for example, and it's up on the screen, they had that 20 kill win. While that I factor that in, I try and take that out of it too. I mean, just like this, Damwon, this 6-7 game, when I'm thinking of Damwon numbers, that's not going to be involved in it. I mean, it is, but like I throw it out and I do averages on both ends. So when you see like people that do like kills, combined kills, per minute, and you have to kind of then figure out how many minutes it's going to be average and do all these, really simple math things. You probably pull up a calculator. Like
that's what I
plus 8,
I have a thing that just does it all for me. Like
sure.
I pull the game data and do it that. So actually one of the things I realized was like, I wanted to find a way to quantify, it's just a volatility index is all it is. So you can do like, you can take a sample of a team's games and have it spit out like a deviation essentially, where it's like, okay, is this team so in this case I came up with let me pull this up again. Like in this case I have Sandbox is like right about the league average in terms of kill total volatility in a game. Obviously we're working with small samples, and KT's on the very, very low end. They're actually, I think, the lowest in the league. Like, so they're pretty steady doing the same thing for the most part. There's only like one outlier in KT's games. So that's what that kind of thing does. It grades. It's a way to quantify like, okay, how widely variant is this really? So that's something I take into consideration too. I think that's something a lot of DFS players can do. It's pretty easy because I know a lot of DFS guys, they have this data, right? This is the kind of stuff they're looking at. They're looking at combined kills, they're looking at kills per win, kills per loss, kills per minute, right? Combined kills per minute. It's pretty easy to take like, let me see. it's pretty easy to figure out. Honestly, just Google it. You can just Google like how to find a volatility of a sample set, and maybe just have it put like a grade, like a volatility grade next to it, so you know what you're getting into when you're looking at certain teams. Be like, okay, this projects for an over maybe, but it's a high volatility over. Like a lot of times, if you look at average, this is why a lot of people in traditional sports use median, not mean, for projections, or they do like a 75-25 weighting or some kind of weighting for it, because yards per carry. I think the classic is yards per carry in football, right? If a running back has 5 carries in a game and one of them went 80 yards, that's going to skew things, right?
Sure.
So this is just a way to measure that.
Look, and if you don't want to look it up and you don't want to do the equation, you can also just subscribe to Gelati's Patreon for $20 a month, and he'll just do it for you and then tell you what to pick. So, you have outs if you don't want to do that math. All right, but let's move on to the other game in the LCK, because I think this one just has it's just more interesting. Maybe it's not more volatile, maybe it is, but it's more interesting from a real kind of DFS standpoint, or from a real League of Legends standpoint and DFS, because it has implications on cash games, GPPs, and this T1 team, I think, is not your traditional, and I say traditional in the last year and a half, 2 years, LCK team, aside from moments of like 2020 Damwon, where they were kind of like a high kill team at times, and they went away from that last year. New coaching, just maybe bored and just wanting to win, maybe a different composition of the team.
Coma's coaching.
yeah. But this T1 team, especially breaking the T1 mold, like T1 was not a team last spring or summer, even if I knew the lineup, was not one that I wanted to touch at any point. And I know that there were certain iterations of that lineup with Closer and Kumiyasu that was just a little bit more interesting, specifically to you and your write-ups. But even then, it was just like, I'm not so interested in it. But
not
small
compared
sample
to LPL
size.
teams.
Correct.
Even other LCK teams, you're right. Like they were not something you wanted to be a part of for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, but now, I mean, we look at what they've done. You still have, like, they're not lock and load, okay? Because they have an 11 kill, they have a 10, they have a 14. They're still more than willing to play that game. But you're seeing these 18, 21, 19, these heavy kill games. And I don't know if it's totally stylistically or if it's just a byproduct of the meta, comeback mechanics, wanting to scale for those dragons, and teams, trying to fight for them, especially the higher priority ones, a little bit more and getting more in those exchanges. But whatever it's been, I mean, I woke up the other day, the last time they played against Sandbox in that 19-12 game, I didn't wake up, I didn't watch it. Look, I was like, hey, we talked about it actually. Yeah. And I wake up and you've got Faker playing Tryndamere and he's 8-1-6, and I'm like, did he just break the slate? And he didn't end up breaking the slate, but that was not
close on that slate a little bit.
I mean, but that was not a line or kill total or stat total that you would expect. And I guess I didn't, not that I don't think that Faker can't play Tryndamere, but that just didn't feel like that's what T1 would have done, last year with similar type of champions. So this game's interesting because they're playing Nongshim. Nongshim is a team that I think at this point is kind of regarded as the fourth best team, the team that's going to challenge the big three. I do have another team that I think can do that, but
who's your other team? Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you're setting up for something later in the show or not, but
I mean, I think it's a little recency bias maybe, but I think that we were high in DRX. They looked terrible for a while, but they I mean, as they come together, I think that team has the talent at the positions that they should be able to challenge those teams. Do I think that they can, win the split? Sure. But I think that they can at least be the fourth best team. And I think that's what a common belief was going into the split. Those first 3 games gave us a lot of questions, but they've started to answer those questions, I think.
Yeah, I think DRX are a classic case of you have some of these every season in every league where there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of change, and sometimes it comes together faster for some teams and sometimes it doesn't. It takes a little bit, right? Now, they just beat up on Brion, so I don't know. I think Brion's fine, but
Brion and the Freaks.
I That's what I mean. Like, let's not jump to 2 minutes. Like, okay, we don't want to go from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other side of the spectrum, and then like they play against someone good and just get smashed again next time they play. So I don't really know.
I guess though it's kind of confirming what you believed before. Like and we'll talk about it. There's a team that confirmed what we believed before, and maybe we're on them that we'll talk about later today. But it's not like we thought DRX was bad. They came in, they were bad. Now all of a sudden we're thinking they're good. We thought they were good. They ended up being bad. Now they're showing signs. So there's levels of optimism, I guess.
Yeah, I think keep an open mind, especially like in the first 3 or 4 weeks. Really, anybody you should keep an open mind on, especially for teams that made a lot of changes, or like key changes, like if they're missing a superstar player and they had to replace it with someone that's a little. I mean, the Damwon situation, right? Damwon kept their core together, and they have this insane coaching staff. But there's still a lot of that's the most changes that team's ever made. So, keep an open mind about them. I mean, it's the same thing in other leagues too, with teams with a lot of turnover. Just take your pick, anyone.
And not to get off base, but on Damwon too, this meta changed to a position where, like, I don't know, like I think if they had made these changes last year, this would have been a lot easier to endure. Obviously, the bottom lane wasn't as heavily focused and indexed. Not that the bottom lane additions that they made were bad. I think most would agree that they were actually good, maybe even an upgrade. But like Canyon's not going to be able to carry and have the same type of impact that he did last year that he did this year. I mean, he's still wildly important to the team and hugely integral to their success, but it's just a little bit different in this meta than it was. I guess maybe not like with the Udyr Hecarim meta, but the summer meta more so.
I'm trying to remember who it was. I think Ashley Kong interviewed somebody on that team. I forget who, and they were talking about this exact thing. Like the who was it? They interviewed Doc Dom about the top lane situation, and there was some like. I don't know. He had some interesting thoughts about it. He's like, you just got to stay patient. He's like, he's like, at some point in 2020 and 2021, like I was terrible too. He's like, yeah, and he was straight up about it. He was like, look, it's not going well right now, but it's also week 3. So I think the players kind of have that idea too. And we see this in traditional sports too, like teams playing each other, play themselves into playoff shape.
Sure.
So,
Well, getting back on point to this, I mean, this was a very long-winded way of saying like this over 23.5 is interesting to me, but like I don't know, like I like it from the T1 side of things, but I just don't know if Nongshim's going to pull them into a game. Like I think if Nongshim was plus 200, I'd be more interested in betting Nongshim. I'm kind of staying away from this. I've been a little bit burned by over/under, so I'm a little bit gun shy right now. But I think that if you are one that thinks that T1 is going to win. And I am. I kind of like that -4.5. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I mean, if we go back to the previous screen, looking at their previous games, I mean, I guess if you think that the 4.5 hits, I think the 4.5 has to go with the over. I think you can kind of put it together.
Yeah. I mean, T1 are like your third highest combined kill per game team, and I think Nongshim were 5th or 6th. But I know T1's got a huge average margin of victory. Like they're crushing people when they win. So 4.5 is not really a key number. So if you do want to lay a favorite and you do want to play, I don't play a lot of kill spreads. And if I do, it's usually underdogs or like alt totals. But 4.5 is one you can play for the most part. Like if you just look at like frequency, it's just like you do for like key numbers in traditional sports. For League of Legends, we kind of have to redo this every year because the game changes a lot. But like the key numbers right now are 6 and 8. But again, like small sample, we need a lot more from that's just in the LCK too. So, 4.5. That's interesting. I actually I'm with the over on this one. Like I didn't take a position on it yet, but I could definitely see a position there.
I think if you're taking the 4.5, you're taking the over. And I mean,
yeah.
You look at this. They win by more than 4.5. Where it was close is like this 14-8, and I can see like a 12-8, a 14-8, a 10-6, those type of things, and those are going to be games that are on the under. This is on the under as well. So if they're going to win by that level margin, I guess Nongshim has put up some kills in those losses. I mean, I'm going to rule this 3 out. I knew they had this 4, but I think this 13-9 is probably more indicative of kind of who they are. If you get kind of like a middle number on that set, you're probably around the 8. So
I think a lot of this one depends on where you are on these two teams. Like I have T1 number 1 with a bullet in the LCK so far. I kind of, again, we've seen 4 matches from each of these teams. Well, I guess 5 from the ones that played this morning, but we've seen 4 matches from these teams. You don't want to go too crazy, but do you think, is this an accurate line to you? Like, would you bet a side in this?
I guess no, I don't think so. I mean, okay. I think it's pretty good. Like I said, I would be interested if you brought it down like 20 points or up 20 points. If it was like a minus 200 or a plus 200, I think that's kind of where I would feel like I'm getting a little bit more value.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm like, if I'm looking for action, like I don't need to go pay minus 225 for T1 to win when I can get the kill spread, when I can get the over, which I think are just a little bit better bets.
Yeah. I actually think the money line market in this is pretty dead on, like for in my opinion anyway. So I would look elsewhere in this one. Did this number moved? I'm pretty sure, because I took Nongshim in this one. I think this is a little bit more qualitative. Like I actually think Nongshim just look really, really good.
Yeah, and I guess that's my hesitation there. You're paying a big number for. I mean, T1 has looked really good. If T1 didn't drop that game to Bro and play those games, I mean, look, they're like 18-4, 21-13.
Yeah.
Call it close if you want, but those games felt a lot closer than those numbers would indicate.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a concern. And Bro, Sandbox, DRX. When we're talking about like strength of schedule, T1 has had a super easy. As far as things go in the LCK, it doesn't get easier than that.
It's about as easy as it gets. Yeah.
So I guess that's a concern that
I took Nongshim to take a map, and then I took Nongshim first towers, but it was at big plus money. So
yeah, and I think like on Bovada, you're not getting huge plus money. Like you're looking at plus to get plus 1.5 minus 175. It's just
I laid 185, but
okay.
Let's see, like you can get 175 on Bovada. I think Penny's at like Penny's at 166. So if you shop around, you can get.
So for me, a lot of those, like when you get above the 160, negative 160 or higher, there just needs to be a strong conviction, like all the way around it for me. Yeah. And I just don't have that here. So that's why I don't do it.
All good.
So then let's go to, that covers the LCK. Let's go ahead and cover this. I mean, I don't know. These 2 games are bangers. Like this is yesterday was a tough slate. Today is a tough slate.
This is a fun slate.
You've got Top Esports, you've got OMG, you've got Top Esports that just has this perennial aura around them. And I think for a lot of people like me that really started, watching post-COVID, Top Esports. Look, Top Esports is when Jackie Love's first game with Top Esports was a game that I went ahead, I used my stimulus money, I put a nice little deposit into Draftkings, I entered all of the 153 max, and I went ahead and I backed Top Esports. They were a big dog that night. I think I took third. At the time I won like $3,000. Yeah. Those contests were great. 153 max, you win $5,000 to first. I think I took second or third, got $3,000, and that was a lot for me. I mean, still, like if I won $3,000 a day, it's cool. But like then,
you're never complaining about that.
Yeah, then it was like running upstairs, showing my roommate, look what I got. I would, bought some steaks, some alcohol, and then. I think I bet on like LCK promotions later,
like you do, right? That's
because that was what was going on back then. So this one you've got minus 370 or minus 325 favorites in Top Esports, plus 230 OMG, plus 1.5 is minus 135, a 26.5 over under, and the spread is 6.5. Yeah, Knight probably did. I mean, and that was what's funny is that right now you've got like. Fodic in the league, and he was the guy replacing Jackie Love. And that guy, look, I didn't know anything about anything, and I mean, I might have been like using Roto Radar or something like that, or
were you total new to esports DFS at that point?
Absolutely, completely new. Awesome. I think I was like I had an Osmo weekly subscription, and I was running it, and like Top Esports had like fantastic projections, but they burned me week after week. Like they just never would do anything. Like the way that a lot of those sites, and I don't know if they still do, but I know some people still do their projections are incredibly hard for somebody coming from traditional sports into esports, reading those projections. They're not in win. They're based off of Vegas odds. And as such, the favorites a lot of times, if they're a high kill favorite, are just going to like jump out. And how do you not play them?
Yeah, exactly.
And I did every time. But so, thoughts on this? And this is weird because everywhere that I look, I think people are, they're down on OMG, but it feels like people want to go to OMG here.
This is a really, really weird one because these happen every once in a while where you get a team with extremely high expectation, like maybe too high of expectations. At least if you trust the futures market, which that's sketchy to begin with. If you trust the futures markets, Top Esports were just going to be overrated for a little while. Like their price was really, really high for what I thought. I like this roster. I think it could be good. I think it's fine. But, again, another team with a lot of moving parts. I was like, there's no way this team should be favored by this, like have this kind of number for a futures market. So you got to remember too, book price is a lot of it is they're either they're bouncing books on either side. And a lot of them, it's just an ELO model that's going off their futures prices as power ratings, right? So in this case, Top Esports it's until it corrects, like it self-corrects and gets a big enough sample to do that, they're just going to stay overpriced. Now, the other side of this game is interesting because OMG came in, and early on, maybe it's just the circles we travel, but OMG were like the hype team. Everyone got all super stoked about them, and then they played some good teams and got completely, I don't want to say completely smashed. They were competitive in a couple games, but for the most part, they, the step up in class was a big deal to them. Now, this is like their first match against somebody that's in the middle. Let me take a look here. Make sure I'm not.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because me and Nathan talked about like cash game theory yesterday, and one of the things that he was pointing out is just how you want to have a specific, like odd level in your cash game, and we were talking about Gen Chi, and look, Top Esports is one of the top two favorites on the slate today, but like I don't think that you can really at this point put them at lower odds than something like this. Even though I don't necessarily think that this is indicative of their actual odds to win this, because if they were at like a minus 250, you just get so many bets probably on that side of it. And that leaves the book completely exposed and maybe in a position that they're not comfortable in.
Yeah. I think this number is just egregiously low. This is the worst number we've seen all year in any league, I think. But again, just with anything, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go that way. But, I make this very close to even money. Like now, that's the thing is OMG. This is, like I said, this is the first actual middle of the table team that OMG's played. OMG completely obliterated the bottom of the table, right? And maybe I shouldn't. They almost dropped a game to anyone's legend. Invictus, they were pretty decisive winners, and TT they smashed in their first series, right? So they played BLG close for like a game and a half. EDG completely smashed them, but I don't fault anybody for that. EDG is really good. And then they lost to LGD. So, like, I don't really know. We don't know what they're going to look like against middle of the table team. There's a good chance that this OMG team is just the same thing it was last year, which is they can't beat the top 8 or 9 teams, but they can beat, they're going to whoop on everybody else. They were like the actual gatekeepers last year. And we just haven't seen them play against anybody that's like their size.
Yeah, and look, here's the one thing that I kind of identified with them is when we look at OMG, they were just running so good, and they're not in the LCK, so they're not going to find them there. I mean, even against BLG, they're riding high. It's just they're feeling themselves. They crushed TT, crushed anybody's life. Well, they didn't crush them, but like the second game, Abel bailed them out in a high kill. Like that's a game that OMG wins, though. A 49 kill game is a game that OMG beats anybody's legend. I don't care how that game starts, how it goes through the middle game. That game finishes with OMG winning. That's just the type of game that they win. Then they beat IG we suspected all these teams were pretty bad. They come in, they beat BLG, and we're like, okay. And then they get handled, and then the wheels just come off.
Yeah.
And they come off against BLG. And it doesn't make it any easier that they went in and had to play EDG and just got absolutely destroyed. And then they lose to LNG. Like
LGD.
Oh, yeah, you're
that's
right.
Yeah, that's the big question mark in all this. Like everything so far, their results, it's like, okay, like that's about expectation. At least it was to me anyway, where it's like, okay, I think this team made an upgrade. They kept a lot of the same thing. They're probably going to start hot. They have a really easy schedule, and they did. They completely smashed. For the most part, they smashed, and then they took a giant step up in competition, and now like they're settling somewhere in the middle here. Because I think top is kind of in the same place they are right now, weirdly enough. And
yeah, I think that what they are to top is what kind of LGD is to OMG in some ways.
Yeah.
And like Kevin, of course not. Why would he take you on even money? This isn't like you can get better odds at the book. Why would he do that? There's only one person that does even money betting in all situations. He's probably watching the show right now.
What's he call it? What's it, Western style? Is that what he's like?
Yeah, you got
something like that, cowboy style or some nuts.
You got a conviction. You got to take it. That's what Baby Goat wants. He wants to see convictions and only convictions. It's even money. To be fair, he took the plus 1.5 or whatever it was on TT, which was like a plus 6. Like it was a ridiculous odds, but he bet even money with people and he still won. Yeah, this is Baby Goat Western style.
Western style, that's what it was. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, So I mean, I agree with you. I think that this is a number that I like to bet at. At plus 200, plus 230. Gosh, where?
Yeah, it should mean something that I'm more bearish on OMG than I think anybody in this space. Like I'm just skeptical. Like they do a lot of things that's going to lead them to inconsistent performances, but they are going to be like that old, like 2 years ago Rogue Warriors, like the punch up underdog Rogue Warriors, where they just love scrapping and sometimes they're going to get the better of it and other times they're not. So, I think OMG are going to fit into that role, and this is just too big a number for the form that Top's in right now. It wouldn't surprise me if Top win this series at all, but there's no way you can justify them being this big a favorite. Like no way.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, look, when it comes down to this, and my style of betting, especially on like some of the minor leagues, I like to just bet numbers like this because you just don't need to be right every time. You don't need to have a 55 or 60% win rate. You can be closer to 40% and still pull a profit. Yeah. And this is just one of those that it just feels like you got to kind of take it. So, any thoughts on the over-under, kind of the kill spread? I don't want any of those. I'll just put the action on OMG. I'll put, I'll lay the juice on the spread. And then take the win, and then if I even get a game, maybe it'll cover my losses on the win.
I do like overs in this one quite a bit. This is, I mean, a top esports average win so far is like a 24.7 kill win, like in an average. That's again mean. That's not median. That's mean situation, and. That's above league average by about a kill and a half. So, and then OMG, you look at OMG and losses, they're dying 21 times a loss on average.
I mean, they've got a 34 in
the
there.
34. If you throw the 34,
you're more around 18 at that.
Yeah,
18, 19. So
it's still a lot. I mean, it's still above average. It's not a lot above average, but
in all of those, with the exception of one against EDG, which I think you can throw out that 4, they're getting 9 to 10 kills in those losses. And I think if you're betting and assuming that OMG can win, in a win, OMG, is going to get close to 20, maybe even over 20 kills. Yeah. And in a win, or in a loss, I should say, Top Esports is a pretty bloody team. They do get a lot of kills. They probably have the most kills per loss of any team, maybe any, but I think their average is probably the best. So I think that's, if you're betting OMG, you're betting the map spread, I think you can take the overs pretty comfortably if that's your assumption.
Yeah, I gotta add overs to my article. You guys will be getting a notification soon. I'm just like having looked at this again. Yeah, this is crazy. This is like alt overs territory. Like I would play plus money over 26.5. I think this gets there good chunk of the time, probably 55-60% of the time. Yeah, I got it. Did you do a full kill projection for this one, or did you just project points?
Kill projection. Give me a second.
I got 27.7.
Um,
Just probably a little high, but like still. This is like a perfect storm because both these teams are bloody in losses too.
I have it like right at the number. But I look, I try and be a little cautious with it. With OMG, I have okay. So if I have OMG winning, I have it like 27, 28.
Yeah, like way over, right? Yeah,
yeah. But if Top Esports wins, I have them winning like 17-8 as like an average score. So that's slightly under. But if OMG wins, I have them winning like 18 to 9.75.
Is this just to bring it back around for like a DFS angle on this one? Like, is it too obvious that this is the game, like the match to play on the slate?
It is going to be. I think Top Esports are going to be the highest owned. I think OMG will be the highest owned dog. But that's only really because the other games are LCK games, and then this other game,
and then a 50-50.
Yeah, you've got a 50-50 game here that actually projects as a higher kill total, at least on the spread. But I think you're going to want to pick, and I maybe like OMG is not going to really be that popular because you can do a lot of things with Top Esports and BLG, but I don't know what you can do with RNG. I haven't really played with that. We'll get into it, but I think that you can. I think you can at least get a jungle captain. I know that you can't Jackie Love captain with Top Esports, but you can doggo and go for Top Esports with like Crisp and then the BLG team spot. So you can get an ADC captain. You just can't get it as a 4-stack with Top.
I've been out most of the day, so I haven't done any builds yet. I haven't messed around with are they priced evenly, RNG and BLG?
I haven't really looked at it, and Fantasy Labs doesn't have Doggo in there. They have Uzi, but they have him on RNG, so it doesn't really help. I tried, and I knew this. Like I forgot. Like this is one that I have to send them an email. I send them a whole thing about Weibo Gaming and
where's the drunk DK intern?
Yeah, well, it's a fantasy. The Fantasy Lab one. I mean, I don't understand why it's so hard. Other optimizers, like the guys that do the optimizer for us over at Dr. Roto, like tried to explain to me like why it would be so difficult to translate it to an esports one. I'm like, what do you mean? Like you take the same thing, plug it in. Like it can't be that difficult. Like it just can't be. But
it's literally the same thing. Like I don't. Anyway, whatever.
SaberSim wouldn't do that. I don't think. I think that they're probably got it. But
yeah, I'm gonna have a big chunk of this game. Like I know it's gonna be really highly owned, I think, but maybe not as much as I think. I don't know. I feel like you want to build with some on both sides here.
I mean, it's hard sometimes to take out the biases that you have when you're trying to think up ownership projections, and I find it a lot harder when I'm trying to tell you guys like what I think. I mean, I used to watch John's videos, and he would say something. I'm like, no, that's not going to be wrong. Those are going to be flipped. That's obvious. But then when you're sitting in front of here and you're tasked with doing it, and you're being held accountable by Gugs, it's tough. Last night I was kind of floored with how low Weibo Gaming. I mean, Hong Fong was around 20%, but the rest of that team was 10%, which just means one-off Hong Fong was like a thing yesterday, and that was kind of surprising to me. I thought Victory 5 would have a little bit of a higher ownership, but like a 40-10, that seemed like I would have gone all in on Weibo if I knew it was going to be 10%. And I did almost. I went 50%. So before we get into this game, I don't know if you went back and looked in the chat logs, but like I went to war. I went to war around like 5:30 a.m. over like the Shy. Like I didn't think that he played poorly. I think if he gets one additional auto off, that game looks very different in game one. Now, like
the first game,
running through the top end of their jungle to get into like when you had clear access to the river, that was inexcusable. But overall, like I mean, like the fact that he died twice within like the first 6 minutes and was able to keep equal farm, Like that lane should have been absolutely. I mean, it wasn't in a good state, but it should have been a lot worse.
Yeah, he is the most unorthodox player on the planet. Like literally, if you look at him, it's really difficult to divorce like the fantasy player from the actual player. But even the actual player, it's just so like he's weird. He's just a weird player, and he's just always going to be really polarizing. You're going to have the vast majority of people think he's shit, right?
Well, that's what I said. I was like, look, is this like, are you just tilting? Like, because he didn't have like,
would he have like 33 points or something today?
Well, he had like negative points in the first game. I was like, and like I get it, but he wasn't the reason that they lost. He wasn't the reason that they won. I think a bigger one was the overstay in that tier 2. And like teams do this all the time. Like bad teams do this more often. You see it so much in the VCS where teams like just value that mid tier 2. I don't know why. Like you don't get extra gold for it. Like why are you trying to do this? And then Angel like overcommits, wastes his package. Everybody dies. Then the Shy comes rolling in. Like what are you doing, bro? Like this is over. We're dead. Like you had the dragon. Like you guys had the dragon, but you tout like it was just insane.
Mid tier 2 is it's amplified mid tier 1. When you can leverage off the center of the map, you can get everywhere faster. And if you can control vision from there, you can set up flanks from either side. It makes it very difficult for the other team because they have to ward 2 sides instead of they have to either keep their vision shallow on the map, either just warding entrances that are deeper in their jungle, and it's a risk to step up and get the wards on like the ramps and everything because you can get picked off, right? Or they need to just pick a side, and if they're wrong, they get blown out, right? So that's why teams like go super hard on the tier 2 a lot of the time, especially the mid tier 2, because it's just a lot of leverage. It gives you map leverage, which is like you can't really put a gold value on, but that's why people sell out for it. That's why people are so ham on tier 1 too.
But I mean, like they had they got the tier 1 there. They chunked out Rookie. They basically won the dragon fight before the dragon fight even happened in a 3-on-3 instead of a 5-on-5, and then they just lost it all.
What was the? They had I think the game they lost.
That was the first game, yeah.
To last week to Victory.
Oh.
I think it was Victory 5. Oh no, was it the TT series? He had a game where like he was just going nuts. I think it was the TT game because he was shitting on New and Frigid, but which take that for what it is. But he was doing his job, and he like it was the game they lost. It was the game they lost to TT. He actually had a really good game. He had a great series in that series. Not a lot of competition, but he had a really good series in that series, and the team just let him down, which was weird. It was like the weirdest flex I've ever seen.
Well, in that whole first game, like that Weibo looked terrible except for Hong Kong. I mean, he just carried them in the early part. But I digress. I was like, man, and I didn't play a lot of the Shy. Maybe that was kind of.
I had a bunch of them. Actually, the Shy was the one that ruined a lot of the lineups that I had a chance of cashing with. So, always it feels bad. I mean, the thing is with the Shy, you know what you're signing up for when you're putting them in your lineups.
And I mean, these days, I just don't know if you're signing up for the 5,200. Like that's what you're signing up for is the salary savings yesterday. Yeah. I don't know.
He's your whatever cheap quarterback on the week.
Yeah, he's Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, Mort had him in 5 of 6 is what he said. But okay, so RNG, BLG, like this total to me seems like it could be a little bit high. I think people are down on RNG. I think people are kind of high on BLG being priced as dogs. I suspect BLG, I don't know. RNG is one of those teams that just, no matter what state that they are in, seems to have people gravitate towards them. And, their run last year probably amplified that to some extent. Yeah. I bet some, total unders. So this is definitely a game that I want to pick up from a BLG standpoint, because if I can get this under 12.5, there are a couple of games that I think RNG loses, assuming that they get, one against the top 4. Maybe that BLG is one of those, like just every one of those wins that I can get. I don't want to have my back to the wall and rely on some of these, wins. Like I already got the FPX one, which is nice. Yeah. So I need to get a couple more, and BLG would feel good. Like
got you one this morning too.
FPX. Well, no, FPX. I don't have the over on FPX. I have RNG. I have RNG under 12.5. And so
I think that's
FPX,
going to be good.
yeah, I do too. But this is a game that makes it feel a lot better if BLG can get it. I don't know.
I'm all over BLG here, and there's like, if you like, just by the numbers, like this is, I mean, it's pretty evenly matched. But like to me, you have to look at this like you have to have a strength of opponent angle to this too, where like RNG. So let me see. Like I did the write up on this. I'm trying to remember. Like RNG
played FPX.
They haven't
JDG.
played any.
Yeah, outside of FPX in the opening
Yeah.
series, the best team that they faced is JDG.
Yeah, and
they struggled.
Let me pull up because they've been like pretty big favorites in most of their contests too. Yeah, they've been huge favorites most of the time. The only time they weren't was that first match. They were like minus 189, I think it was. But yeah, they've had a soft schedule for the most part. And BLG, I mean, BLG we've only seen a few matches from them, but they haven't played a bad team. So, like, this is like you don't want to do like transitive property because it doesn't always work that way most of the time anyway. Like, unless it's like common opponent, if it's like all common opponents, then you can look at it that way, I guess. But like, if it's all common opponents and it's all recent, then you can maybe kind of use that. But to me, Billy have put up better numbers against better teams, and I kind of just like their approach to the game better. And I think RNG are a lot more predictable, just in general. RNG are still the same team; they just moved Xiaohu to mid. Like they're still doing the same exact thing. They just camp Xiaohu every single game. So I don't know. I think that's predictable, but I say things are predictable in the LPL all the time. Teams never make adjustments. So one of my beefs. It's one of the beefs I have with the league. They never make adjustments to anything. They just all kind of do their own thing, which makes it fun to watch. But it's infuriating to see teams get away with murder for 10 weeks straight, and then finally in the playoffs, when the team studies another team, like, oh, this is easy, and they blow them out. So yeah, I'm all over BLG here. I think they've looked better against better competition, and that's the.
What's your stone, baby goat? I have no idea what. I mean, I have an idea of what a stone is.
RNG.
Oh, it's like, okay, some people like say anchor. Yeah, I got you. I'm guessing. I'm guessing. I mean, I'm assuming that's what it is. So, okay. Yeah, let's see. One thing I wanted to look at.
The other thing with RNG is they're like, oh no, I'm not gonna. Never mind. This is a different game. Scratch that. RNG are getting off to good starts against these teams too, and BLG still outperform them by the numbers, which is like, I don't know. This seems weird. I kind of think they're a little tiny bit fraudulent. I'm not saying they're a bad team. Yeah, I'm not saying they're a bad team, but you know what? They were like this last year too, where like they had these like series where they do the Suning thing sometimes, where it's like, oh, they just look like shit against a mid or bottom tier team in a series, and they come out and smash a good team. So like, I don't know. I'm betting BLG in this case. I'm on BLG sides, BLG sweep. I guess we're clashing there, baby goat.
And maybe you can get even money with them. Yeah. Western style.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the hype series, right? It's the last series before the 2-week break. Everyone was hoping to get Uzi, but like Doggo's been fine. It should be a good series. I think this is two of the better teams in the league, and in the LPL, anytime you get two of the top few teams, it's always just going to be fun to watch. So I could see cases for either side of this one, but I'm all over BLG.
All right. Well, let's take a look at how this all shakes out from a DFS standpoint. So it looks like, and again, this is going to show like a cream captain because they don't have Doggo. I mean, you obviously can. But like with an OMG Able captain, I think I have actually Able as a higher scoring. I mean, this might actually be the way that it puts it together. I'm not even sure. Maybe I think a Kai would probably go in for way because I think a Kai, like if we're looking at projections, just give me a second here. Bring it over to this.
Aki's been pretty heavily participating, if I remember correctly.
I have him as a 90 versus Wei as an 84. There's a 6 point difference. Doggo an 89, but like all of OMG just kind of a byproduct of I think larger kill totals
Yeah.
are going to have higher scores, and so like that is the 4 stack. I mean, I think you could probably, and I don't know if this will be popular, but I think it might be, is like an able captain with Doggo. Just because people want to play Doggo, people want to play Cream, and people don't like Fofo. And rightfully so. Like, I get it. Look, the projections don't like him either.
Yeah.
But, like, that's one of those things, like, SOFM, the projections don't necessarily love SOFM in comparison to other junglers, and he had a fantastic game.
He had a good series.
In a 2-1, those guys can pop off, is essentially what I'm saying. And so those are the type of guys that you can get some really good leverage even within teams that have higher ownership. But that like brings us with like a 624. You can do anything you want from a price standpoint. OMG and T1. I mean, does that
like almost feels too obvious to me? Like I said, but maybe it's not though. We talked about, we kind of mentioned this already, where it's like maybe they are a big enough underdog that people just don't want anything to do with it. But like just the way the pricing's looking, and like I just started looking at, I'm like looking at this with you right now as we go. So just the way it's like shaping up, like it feels like you have to have a horse in that race.
So, okay, so we're at 653 with T1. That's higher. I mean, you can definitely play with RNG too. You're looking at a 650. Then KT. I mean, if you wanted to play KT, this is the way you do it, but you're only at a. I mean, that makes sense. That's almost exactly how I would build it. I don't think that you want anything else. You want to play Rascal. You want to play Aiming. You want to play Shanchi. It's just like, who else do you play outside of Aiming?
I'll
tell you one player
on the team.
I never want to play Life. Life is one of the guys that like I just will never play. I will never play Life.
Life's the Hilly of the LCK.
I mean, like Hilly puts up good scores, which is like Life last year. Like, it'd be a 2-game sweep, and he put up 45, and it'd be like, how you got 20 points? Your team got 30. Where were you? Like what are you doing? Your team plays through your ADC. How are you not like? What are you doing? It just doesn't even make sense.
He played a lot of Nautilus, if I remember right. Which life is death. There we go. Spell with the quotes.
Baby O says, "What's your take on T1? What does the trust the numbers say there? In regards to what? Like the
money line market? I make it pretty close to the market price. I'm playing plus 1.5 maps on Nongshim. I think they can take a game, maybe the series, but in terms of pricing, I made it just about on market. So,
all right. So again, BLG test. This is going to show with no Doggo, obviously, because he's not in the player pool. But like I said, you can go with a Doggo captain. But if you want to do 4 tests, this is what you're looking at. And when we look at kind of like the mid, this is a situation that I kind of want to bring up here. So when we Iron Berserker said he made that exact OMG T1 lineup. Yeah, I mean, like, it makes sense. Like, you want to play Cream Captain, and that's just what happens. Yeah. You don't want to play Gumiasi because he's had some bad games, but he's kind of like Fofo. Like, the $1 million question, and this guy is going to have 40% ownership, always does, no matter what, is Knight. Everybody wants to play Knight, but Knight has not been Knight from a fantasy perspective, and maybe from like that 2020 form. In like
Knight's still very, very good, but
very good
for fantasy purposes. Yeah, he's not what he was in 2020, like
or even spring 2021.
Yeah,
I think he started to fall off in summer in terms of what he was doing, and I think that's just a byproduct of the team not winning as much. But you look at, so if we go to, let's see. Players, and we go to China, LPL, spring, and go filter positions, mids, kill participations, within wins. Look where Knight is, and look at what his kill share is.
That makes a lot of sense. He's doing what Rookie was doing last year. Like Rookie's still just like insanely good, but he's just like not having to do with anything. Like do you remember how many games last year Rookie was just like, nah, you guys deal with your own thing. I'm gonna try to win the game. You do whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah, Spell, look, I think his kill share is way less. In my projections, I do not have him as a 10. I have him closer to a 20. Yeah. Like there are certain numbers that like I'm not going off of. Like I go off of this as a basis, and I'll adjust ones that are absolutely atrocious. But this is not what he was, last year. I mean, if you go back and we can go back to LPL spring. Obviously a different, but we're comparing comparable positions, and we go into wins, and we go into kill share, and it's a 27 with a 66. So I get shit happens, like you said, but that's a 10 versus a 27. I mean, this is and he may get there, but it's not like it's an insignificant sample size at this point. It's pretty close to it, but
what's wild is like he's actually doing like good damage. And still somehow the kill participation's down. It's really bizarre. Like he's played 4 games on Victor, I think. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. He's played like Victor and Corki almost every game. I think he's got a couple one-ofs. Like I know he played the Silas game. I think he played Tryndamere. And I don't remember the other ones. He's played a couple things, but he's played mostly Victor and Corki. And his damage numbers are good. Not incredible, but they're good. They're solid. But it's weird to see like control mage situations like that. And they're not getting the kill participation, but they are doing the damage, especially with like all the AoE damage those champions do. Like to just get assists and everything. Like it's weird that he's not getting that many. Like maybe it's a symptom of top not scoring that crazy in wins. Is that what I'm trying to pull this up now?
Well, and look, here's the other thing is that this would be a great buy low situation. Like let's say Rookie, for example, prior to the just absolute beastly series he had against whoever it was, I can't remember. Against RA.
The one last week,
yeah, it was against RA.
The Victor series where he just like one shot the team 3 different times in that game.
Yeah, where he was
no comment.
10, 1, and 10. He either got the kill or he got an assist, or he could have had all the kills. The thing is, like Rookie was in a buy low situation. Like you still wanted to get Rookie in your lineups, but he wasn't like the priority. Just on the basis of the performances he had last year, performances he had this year. His projections just weren't really good. We're not there yet at night. So we're almost in this situation where you're looking at this number, and instead of saying, hey, like this is a buy low where this guy should be higher than this, and he should, but how much higher should he be? Is this still a situation where you can wait to get on the train one more week? Can you get off of it? Like, because I guarantee you, unless it's a pricing thing and you have to only have Jackie Love or Knight, and I'm probably picking Jackie Love right now, just based on the meta and all things considered, a lot of people are still going to take Knight, man. Like they just are. And he's going to have similar ownership. They're both going to be like 40%. If you can get away from a series that they win where Knight is less than what you expect him to be, which is excellent, and you can get a guy like Fofo, who, I mean, I get it. His numbers are right there, but I'm just saying he can have an equally, like he could get LeBlanc 2 games and just ball out,
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing with this. Top Esports have the 5th lowest kills per win in the LPL. So, and it's like well below the league average. Like they're getting 15.35 kills per win. Actually, hold up. No, that's 15.8 kills per win. And the league average is 17.2. So they're when they're winning, they're scoring well below average, right?
Well, because they have the one game at 11, they have the one game at 13. I mean, the other one, and they won at 12. Like they had that 22 kill loss that should have been a win that they threw to RA.
Yeah, that was such a weird game. Anyway, so like again, outliers like this are going to impact, especially like a sample this size. Like it's still going to have a heavy impact on it. Like once they get 20 games in, 1 or 2 outliers isn't going to completely blow things up, right? But like this is still a sample that's that's 20% of the sample, 40% of the sample, right? Like in wins.
Yeah, the 2 games that they had that were like good totals were against Up, and I think
Up feeds to everybody.
Yeah, like I mean, you look it up, and I think you can kind of toss that out to a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, trying to see here. The point I'm trying to make is like I think it's reasonable to expect regression, like positive regression in this case. So, like, I'm not saying, Top's going to come out and get a bunch of 20 kill wins tomorrow, but, this is on the lower end of the spectrum. Like, unless you think this team's not going to be that way, which is possible. Maybe they are just the BLG this year. BLG was kind of like that last year. There's always a couple, or Weibo, right? Maybe they are just going to be the low kill team. I don't know, but I would be willing to take some Knight here. Here's the other thing, right? For DFS purposes, everyone's thinking the same thing, right? Everyone's like, oh, well, I want Jackie Love. He's been scoring more points, right? Is this a time to like get good ownership on Knight?
I just don't think it is. Like I don't think that it's changed. I think Knight is just so cemented in people's heads that they force him. Like, I mean, Knight is like that quintessential.
It's got name brand value.
I mean, going into the season, like if you looked at projections from last year, at least projections that like I started doing were Knight scores more in a 2-1. He was the only guy that consistently had more than 20 points in a loss. Like you wanted Top to lose a game if you were playing Knight because the game not played bonus was not going to be as fruitful for Knight as a loss was. But yeah, I mean, look, all these underlying numbers, like now it's sorted by damage. And you can see the kill shares of everybody else that has similar damage numbers. You can see the kill participations of everybody else that has similar ones. Again, what I'm trying to say is that like I wish that Knight was going to have some low ownership, and I'm trying to maybe scare some of you away from him.
Yeah, about it.
Like don't play Knight, and then you look at my lineups, 100% Knight, all captain. And he goes off and be like, man, it was obvious. I just came to that conclusion. I was building lineups.
Spell brings up a good point here, too, is that, like, if you take out that Ultra Prime series, like, there's really not that much of a difference. There's, like, basically no difference.
So pulling data from, like, last year, I don't think the site has done anything this year. Oh, no, it looks like they've started doing stuff. Okay, I don't know when that happened. Nice. I kind of like this site. If we go LPL, we go to Top Esports. Let's just run like July 1st through here. Victory. Yeah, I mean, Knight outscored by a lot, last year. So yeah, I guess the conclusion is don't get worried about Knight, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess that's where we're at.
Unless you're playing contest tomorrow, and then let us have all the Knight ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because like this is still 12-1. It's still going to be a lot of Victor and Corki. I think by the end of the season, if you look back on teams that aren't awful playing Victor and Corki, like those champion. Actually, I'm just going to do this right now and look at it for what it's been so far this season. I'm just going to look at like what's the average kill participation for like a Corki.
Yeah.
Let me see. This up. I don't know if he's going to have this. All right, Corki.
I don't think any of these numbers are surprising. I mean, like you can see, here's that Jackie Love. This is just kind of what we're talking about here. T1 owner has been one of the highest scoring, and like I mean, we can take a look at kind of the same sheet that we were looking at yesterday. Owner just has had some really monstrous series.
Yeah, I can't. It's not available right now. I have to pull it up. I would venture a bet that Corki's kill participation is way higher than what Knight's got.
Are we looking just in the LPL?
Yeah, it doesn't have it. That's why I was just looking.
Are you on game? Was it?
Yeah, I was on GOL. Didn't have it. I could probably pull it from my. I haven't run these in a minute, so. You'd have to pull like KP for players in games that played Corki. Oh yeah, Wiki might have it. Yeah, Corki and Victor, it's so easy for them to impact. Like just pick up assist if they're not getting kills. There we go. Yeah, kill participation. 70.4. All right, so not that much lower. And what was he? 60. He was 62, right?
Yeah, Knight was.
So he's 62, and he's played 7 games between those champions. He's played 7 out of his how many games they played? 13 games.
Mm-hmm. So
more than half of his games are on those two characters, and he's 8% below the field. Well, 4% or 5% below on Victor, and 8% below on Corki. It's a little weird. Just might not mean anything. It might just be noise. It's again small samples, but like that's a weird. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if these were outlier games or what.
It's the Silas game. I mean, that one hurt.
Oh, the Silas game
and
was
Zill.
his average down. Never mind. We're good. Okay, never mind.
I mean,
Scratch that whole hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean everything else. So I guess just keep them off of that. I guess maybe that was like a super high kill game. I mean,
that was against TF, I think, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, Kev makes a really, really good point. Like when the game is revolving around those two carries, and the LPL is like only playing those two unless they're banned. Like the LCK, I don't know if you saw like the LCK is really not about Jinx. And that like as the weeks like the especially from like week 1 into week 2, like you've seen a couple people still playing it, but there is not nearly the same priority on Jinx in the LP or in the LCK as there is in the LPL, which is interesting to me because I think it's just generically powerful right now. It's weird to me that they don't think it's as good. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at the Western leagues. It seems like it's in every game in the Western leagues too.
Yeah, I mean it's in all the ERLs. I mean it's pretty predominant.
Yeah, especially like you would think like in the LCK too, like especially with the way like they prefer to play the game, like they would be better. Like you want.
Yeah.
I think you know what it is. I think a big difference is the Korean 80 carries. They like the Gale Force Aphelios, and the Gale Force Aphelios can actually just solo Jinx whenever he wants. So
they
like
do
if they're ever left 1-on-1, the one item spike Aphelios just wrecks Jinx. The same with Jhin. Jhin will wreck a Jinx early on too. Actually, later on too, he just 2-shots her. But like if you ever leave like that, maybe that's why because they're playing. They prefer those champions and like those builds on those champions, and that makes it rougher. That makes it rough for Jinx to 1v1. A lot of times the 80 carries are left 1v1ing while the support rotates up for the Herald fight, right? So or roams mid or something like that, and like that's an exposure moment for the Jinx. So maybe that's why they don't like it. But I don't know. It's interesting. Who you want in this one? I'm bringing it back to RNG BLG. Did you have a side in this? You own BLG?
I'll probably play more BLG, but I will have some RNG. Like I'm gonna hedge. So like I play all the 333, so I have 3 lineups there. Then I have 6 in the the bounty hunter, and I use that as kind of a hedge. And then I usually do like 1 267 winner take all, and that's sometimes partially a hedge. But that way, ideally, I limit my losses. I do cap my winnings from that sense because I am going to have a series of lineups that lose, but hopefully I'm not dead by 5 o'clock or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But
DFS covered call. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, like it extends your bankroll for times and gives you more opportunities to hit that, especially when you're playing in contests these size. Like you're likely to hit it if you're putting in plus EV lineups, and so as a result, that's just the way that I've always played it. I just can't go all in on one team. I don't know. It feels terrible. It feels good when it hits, right? But like I like to watch the games. I like to watch the games, and if I want to watch the games, I want to have something on it. If I don't have something on it, it's just harder to watch it. So
yeah, I got you. So where do we end up? KT.
So yeah, I mean KT just doesn't project super well. I mean outside of aiming, I think that your target spots, KT is just expensive too. When we look at all of these teams and like the salaries, Rascal is the most expensive at 6,600. Cuz at 7,200, and he just like projects like the worst out of any of the junglers.
What did Rascal project at? I didn't look.
The best actually. He projects really well. Not the best, but he projects really well in a 2-0. In a 2-1, a little bit less, but only slightly worse than Kana and worse than Shanji.
Yeah.
But Arya, I mean, the strides he's made, still not projecting well. Aiming for his price is just not projecting well.
Aiming feels like a one-of candidate.
Yeah, so I have a hard time going to KT, I mean, equally, I don't have an easy time going to Sandbox when I don't think that you need to. So when Sandbox was successful, it's just on one of those slates that's going to be low scoring. And I think you're going to have some high scoring. Like, you're not going to get all these games going low scoring. You're not going to have these like kind of low scoring tests and OMG. And if you do, T1 and Nongshim is going to have some high scoring. Like, you're going to, 2 out of these 3 games are going to provide you winners that you can probably put together a 4-3 or a 3-4 or something like that can give you a high score.
It does seem like every slate so far this year, it seems like there's been like one blow up series. But but what's interesting when there's only one, like you said, like you can build a couple different ways. Like you can build with a couple different teams as long as you have a piece of the one that scored high, right? Or you can cash. Maybe you're not going to spike a whole thing, but
yeah, and I think that's a viable theory and a way of building it in the large GPP. And I think that that's a fantastic way to differentiate and try and get like that optimal out of 3,000 people. You're playing the 333, you're playing the Bounty Hunter, you're playing any of these smaller single entries. I don't think a 4-1-1-1. You're just you're asking for too much. And like I got cute with it. What was it? Friday night, I did a one-off Huang Feng. They played anybody's legend. He did nothing. If I just played the 4-3 with Gumiasi, I would have taken like 2nd or 3rd place, and I would have won a ton of money. But I got too cute, and I got hit with a floor game, a range of outcome floor game, and it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And all I needed was an average game.
Trying to think of where I'm going to be on this one. I'm like getting my first look at all. I'm getting my first look at all the pricing and everything now, like live with you, like live reacts only. So
this is, I mean, that's kind of how I like to do it. I mean, sometimes if I get this done early enough, I take a look at it, and I briefly did today. So only more so because Iron Berserker had made a comment, and so I was like, oh man, maybe I'll go look at the pricing and stuff like that. And then I found out Doggo wasn't in it, and I was like, man, it's just too late. I think I'm going to have a lot of OMG, and I think that despite, what we're saying, my reach is not enough on this show to impact the masses. I think people are going to be on top esports. I think they're going to probably be 35% owned, and if they're 35% owned, maybe like OMG is going to be 20, like Cream will be like 20 to 15. Guys like Aki and Cold, and I think Shanji might like he gets some ownership just because he's like the highest scoring top on the slate by a large margin.
I didn't see what you did last. Were you bullish on FPX last night?
I played a fair amount of FPX. I was pretty split on that
because they projected like crazy good in a win, right? Is that what like?
I played FPX with. I think I played him with Weibo. Like it was just like a double dog type of situation.
Yeah.
I just felt like everybody was going to be on LNG, and everybody was on LNG Victory 5. Like so,
OMG feels a little bit like that match again tonight, where it's like an underdog. I mean, in this case, it's a much bigger underdog, right? Where, like, I think they're going to score. Like, if they win, they're going to score well, like most of the time. So. I don't know. We talked a lot about that one. We talked that one to death. Like I think you want a piece of that one. I know the other one projects higher on average, but I think you're going to want a piece of that game. I'm probably
I think I want to play a little bit of T1 too. Like I'm probably crossing this game out for better or worse. Just live with it. Don't have to wake up as early either.
Equity there.
Feel pretty safe about these. I feel pretty safe about these 2 lineups right here. Or I'm not worried about subs. Like if they put effort in, fuck me. Peter should be the play, but whatever. And if T1 signs somebody in the middle of the night and decides to play him, like it is what it is, man. Like you just like it happens.
You're gonna wake up and there's gonna be like a 40 kill game in that KT Sandbox series.
Look, I'll play them in the large GPP. Is where I probably will. That's what I usually do. Is I play like the least optimal team in that large GPP because I want the most leverage there. So I'm not doing the 4-1-1 dark arts that you've got here, like the spell says. I just play the least optimal team with the lowest kills and the lowest ownership because you should play them in that. And I'll probably pair them like I'll run the same lineup like OMG and Sandbox, Top and Sandbox. KT and BLG, and then I'll try and do an RNG like KT, something like that. Just to have some experience.
What can you build with top esports and BLG? Is that a jungle captain?
It's a jungle captain, or I think the most optimal build that you can go with is a doggo captain, Zoom, Xiaoping, Knight, Jackie Love, Crisp, and then team slot.
Damn,
BLG.
That feels too obvious. I'm gonna play that with a different team slot, like that with T1 or something. I don't know if you can afford that or not. I'm gonna mess around.
No, you couldn't do T1, but no, you couldn't do it with T1. You could do it with. You'd only do it with the dogs or sandbox. You could do it with RNG, but that's obviously not going to make sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'd have to one off one of the other spots, and maybe you could do something like you could okay. So to do like your kind of dark arts here, you could go down and play Zeus instead of Zoom, which I think projects pretty similar, a little bit better.
Yeah,
and then that extra 200 actually lets you go and grab the T1 team slots. Now you got a T1 team slot, 3 top esports, and the doggo 1-off captain with Chris. Like, so yeah, I mean, you got a mishmash of things going on there.
Yeah. Just trying to think, like, just T1. I don't know, man. They kind of win a little fast for my liking, especially. I don't know. I think this series is going to be competitive. Yeah, T1 got asked middle of the night. Oh yeah, they're playing in for this.
That's okay.
5:14 a.m. Gugs. Asper didn't start. What the fuck?
What is Asper? He's okay. Yeah, like I'm not playing Kira, so like that's what I thought. So I'm not even worried about it. Like you can play Asper, go for it. Unless he turns into a Peter where he's putting up some massive points, I'm not worried about it.
Dude, he was good. He looks really, really good.
Yeah, no, Peter's putting up some. I look at the one screen and I see my on my other screen and it like messes me up and trying to move it around there. But yeah, like effort. This was effort, and then I think this is where Peter came in these series right here, and you can see he's scoring really well.
Kicking ass. He's been like, dude, the LCK and rookie supports, man. I don't know where they grow these guys or what they're feeding them.
Not this,
but like,
dude.
there's just always, not him. We don't talk about him, but I don't know that team. That team is just sketch right now, but every year there's like 2 or 3 guys that come at this. It's like where these guys come from. But anyway, Willer season. It's not. Oh, tomorrow. Okay, not tonight.
Well, I mean that's fine. I mean it's a 2-game LCK slate, so we're gonna wrap this up right here. I mean, if you have any final thoughts, you want to plug your Patreon, go ahead.
Patreon.com/GelateLOL if you're interested. And I write on every slate in the 4 majors, every game. And you'll get betting positions, market. I've been trying to do more like big picture content. I've been doing the weekly. I know you're a fan of the weekly macro trend report. I'm basically looking at how the leagues as a whole are performing against the betting markets in terms of like, are kill totals performing well? Are kill totals profitable? I'm going to be adding profitability to those as well. So we're going to be able to look at like, okay, like if you just like theoretically blind bet all the totals, like all the unders, how would you be doing? Would it actually be plus EV or is it just like net neutral?
Well, and the nice thing about that report too is it's also like a reverse index for how Nathan is doing. You can just see how the dogs are doing, and you can just kind of figure out how Nathan's doing.
Oh man, shout out Nathan! Congrats to the winner. I say congrats to the winner because it's every single slate for him, right?
That is getting beat down, but we're at the beginning of the year, and so this is, I think, going to continue the rest of the year. This is last year's Kratz and Jinx, and we still see that, but not nearly as much. But it is nauseating at this point. But yeah, no, the content where there's great, different options. So, if you like some of the stuff that I like, you can pay that $20, but there's just picks options as well. It's fantastic. You just started doing podcasts, definitely worth it. So, check that out. Use code EMK. There's not really a spot for that.
I wish there was a way to set up referral codes for this kind of thing,
but we will be back tomorrow at 8:30. I will have, or I should have, a new guest. Maybe Nathan's going to join. We're going to talk LEC. We might, get into the LCK. It's a 2-game slate. There's nothing really exciting, but the LEC is coming up. We can talk about that 5-game slate. And I do have a new guest to the show. couldn't make it tonight. His internet was out. Gelati, you know him very well. Chris Prime is going to be on the show tomorrow. So, he'll get a chance to clap back at all the fantasy penta memes that happened in the Discord. There's just too many. There's too many. So we're going to give him a chance to sound off on all y'all. But
sounds fun.
He's too nice of a guy. He probably won't do anything.
Chris is the best.
So fantastic. If there's anybody that you want to see on the show, if you'd like to be on the show, send me a Discord or a Twitter message, and we'll see about getting you on. Again, if you watch any of the ERLs, LFL, Super League, Ultra League, any of those, we'll have content on that next week. So maybe in the middle of the day, it doesn't have to be at this time. We'll figure it out. But other than that, thank you so much. Let's take down some GPPs. Let's win some cash games, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Later, everyone.